Ladies and gentlemen, this is Way of the Samurai 4. If you never heard anything about this franchise before, don't worry, it always flew under the radar because of its unique and sometimes weird ideas and playstyle. I mean, what do you expect? This game was made by Spike Chunsoft, a Japanese game developer who was also responsible for Danganronpa 1 and 2. And let me tell you, these games are beyond crazy. So, get ready for some cultural enrichment, Japan style. Each game in Way of the Samurai starts out the same way. You, as a nameless roaming samurai, arrives at a specific place in Japan during a crisis or time of great political shift. Once there, you have a set amount of days to either fight for one of the residing factions, thus changing the future of the place, or you just go your merry way and don't give a rat's ass about other people's problems. Once you finish the game, start a new one. Only this time you're free to do the complete opposite of what you've done, and you get to keep the weapons you collected, and depending on your actions in the last run, the game world might change a bit. Because of that and their general weirdness, most games in the franchise have up to 10 endings to discover. So just to make it clear, this game is designed to be played multiple times since it's impossible to explore everything in one run. And I am about to delve deep into this samurai simulator. So, let's begin. Now from the start, the game does a good job of introducing the three factions you can choose from. Faction number 1 is the traditional shogunate, and it's represented by the three Kinogawa sisters who rule in this area. They also happen to be the daughters of the local chief minister, and he's a real charmer. Look at that trustworthy smile and the skull jewelry. He's obviously a man of honor. The second faction consists entirely of racist, red-wearing rebels who call themselves the Disciples of Prajna. Under their charismatic leader Akagi, they try to expel all foreign forces in Japan, for they fear that their way of life will be threatened and eventually destroyed by the Western forces. And lastly, we have the outsiders who want to strike up trade with Japan. They are represented by Count Jet Jenkins and Ambassador Laura Lita? And she's how old exactly? 14? 16? Well, I could make fun of that, but every Japanese game is by law required to feature at least one loli. So, moving on. What's the name of her bodyguard? Melinda Mega Melons. Anyway, during some negotiations, the Prajnas cause a ruckus at the harbor and actually manage to capture the jailbait. But as fate would have it, a nameless samurai arrives at the port, ready to save the day. Or make it worse and side with the Prajnas. From here on out, the game gives you the freedom to decide which faction you want to support by completing missions for them. These missions string the story along, and you will have 4 days to change the fate of Japan for better or worse. But don't worry, you will never be pressured by a time limit. In fact, the story can only progress when you finally decide to take one of the missions the factions provide for you. Once you take a mission from a faction of your choice, an event happens, the day progresses onwards, and the other factions automatically cancel their offer and do their missions without you. Rinse, repeat. And this goes on for 4 days until your actions conclude in a grand finale. So if you really want to get the big picture about what's going on in Amihama, well, then you have to play the game multiple times. And that's because sometimes even the quest givers are left in the dark and deceive themselves by running in the trap another faction might have put up. Story-wise, I can't pin Way of the Samurai down. In regards to storytelling, it plays just like a Japanese visual novel where you have to decide which guy to trust or what items to take with you. And just like in these visual novels, Way of the Samurai may turn out to be a comedy, a drama, or even a love story, albeit one that I am more than a little uncomfortable with. I'm sorry, my heart belongs to someone else. Either way, these stories are possible because every character you encounter can have his or her fate changed by your hand. Count Jenkins is a wonderful example to illustrate this point. If you ally yourself with the British Empire, the Count sucks you into a world of gambling where he ultimately bets his life away and as a result, gets killed by assassins while having a smoke. However, if you side with the Prajnas, then you will have to face off against him at some point or another and, you guessed it, you kill him. In other timelines though, the Count may even help you out raiding the Prajna stronghold if you play your cards right. And this time, he survives. Or, and this is my absolute favorite outcome, you can send him on his way to become a cooking apprentice in a sushi restaurant. And his sushi is well, it definitely looks interesting. In short, your decisions truly matter and determine what kind of story will be told in the end. But I have to warn you, this game is not a masterpiece of storytelling. You will never find yourself crying over the death of one of the characters, like in Mass Effect for example, and that has a reason. All the characters you encounter have defining traits and characteristics, sure, but none of them show any deepness of character and instead rely on generic stereotypes and anime tropes. Unless you find a way to manipulate the events in your favor. Once you figured out how to do that, you will be railed into what I will call the true storyline of the game. At least some of the characters you know are then forced to break out of their comfort zone and learn a thing or two, which honestly surprised me and felt really good. As you can expect, the focus of the game lies in fighting. Sword fighting to be specific, and if you're not into that, lance fighting is an option too. And if you're not into that, well then just punch your enemy to death, it's always on the table. But don't worry, despite all these weapons, the combat system is pretty simple. You have a variety of fast and heavy attacks which you can chain together to make pretty sick combos. And then you can do the usual block and sidestep. The interesting part is that the game spices things up by implementing some ideas you will not find in any other game. First, there is the blade lock mechanic. When an enemy blocks your attack or when you block, there's this little window of opportunity where you can either push or pull your weapon to knock the opponent off balance. And this is such a cool mechanic because that way you can land a powerful blow afterwards. The second thing that stands out is how health is implemented, and it plays a big part in how fighting in the game actually works. Way of the Samurai gives each character, that means you and your opponent, 2 health bars. One is green and is actually called health, while the other is purple and is dubbed vitality. Health works just as you would expect it to, no health, you die, that's it. But the purple stuff can be used for 2 things. You can use your vitality to execute powerful special moves. These kind of attacks deplete your vitality pretty fast, but special moves can outright kill or at least severely injure an enemy with 1 strike, giving you the upper hand if the attack connects. Second, as long as you have vitality left, you will automatically regenerate health if you manage to not get hit for about 2 seconds. But again, your opponents will pull off the same trick, and if you're not careful, you will have to chip away the health of an enemy all over again. So I would advise you to keep the fights short, sweet, and utterly brutal, because oftentimes you will have to fight large groups of enemies. But thankfully, not the whole group at once. They actually wait in line until you're done with your current opponent, but before you start celebrating that this is fair, it isn't. Because groups can consist of 30 people and all of them want to dance with you. But at least you get a bit of compensation for every enemy you kill. Once you down your opponents, you can pick up their weapons and claim them as your own. This is, by the way, the core idea of the franchise. Weapons can't be bought, you have to earn them. And it goes without saying that the stronger and cooler weapons are held by unique characters that you can only fight if you choose the right event. And there is a lot you can do with the weapons you find. You can, of course, sell them for some money, or, with the help of the smith, you can melt them down and use the raw material to make your own weapon stronger. Or you can disassemble the katana altogether and then recombine the parts to create your own unique blade. Needless to say, that is the first thing I did, and it's just so cool to have my 1 in a million katana that slices through everything like that. Oh. Yeah, weapons can break if you use them too much, which, on the plus side, adds a bit more realism to the game. But I am not a big fan of this mechanic because you're screwed if it happens during a fight you can't flee from, which is pretty much every fight. So please, do yourself a favor and let the smith repair your weapon once in a while. Or at the very least, carry a secondary weapon with you. Even if it's not your first choice, it's still better than nothing. I'm going to be honest with you, the graphics are not good. If you look really close, then you can see that the tree leaves are probably made out of green cardboard with some holes in it. And the models? Well, they need a little more polish too. And seeing all this in motion is pretty much hit and miss. Sometimes the cutscenes are awesome and depict a perfect amount of facial expression to be taken serious. And at other times... Just look at how my samurai eats. Is he happy? Is he angry? Did he just realize that the geisha from last night was a dude? I can't read a single emotion here. How do you even eat like that? You can clearly see that the developers sometimes took the easy way out by simply making a crowd with people that are there, but don't move a muscle. And the result of that is sometimes just uncanny. For example, at one point the game forces you to participate in a tournament where every match is fought to the death. You would expect the audience to be shocked or in awe, but nope. There's also this guy, looking all smug and in a pose like he just took the best shit in his life. And this game came out in 2011, the same year Uncharted 3 came out, and oh my god, would you look at this marvel! Good graphics and a consistent tone, this game has not. But it doesn't mean that it can't be charming. The streets are filled with random people who engage in conversations. Well, sort of. And of course you can budge in and start a conversation if you want to. Most people will tell you about their day or some tidbits about the town. Some of the townsfolk will even ask you if you could do a mission for them, and their requests range from super sweet and harmless, like delivering a letter to a friend or a potential lover, to pretty brutal. A few people will outright ask you if you want to murder someone for cash. Moving on to the voice acting. It's in Japanese, with subtitles, and it's the purest ham you will ever hear. Don't get me wrong, the delivery is on point and not bad at all, but it's just like listening to a goofy anime, and in this case, this isn't even a bad thing since Way of the Samurai doesn't take itself that serious anyway. And I just have to give some points for realism, because unless you helped opening up a speech school in one of the missions, you won't understand a single thing that comes out of these English colonists. They will just laugh at you. So get your ass to school and start learning.
This is a pen.
But not just the people give you an impression of a busy port town. You will find a lot of buildings you can actually go into that serve all kinds of purposes. There are so many restaurants in this town, and each one has its own traditional Japanese dishes which not only give you your health back, but also give you special bonuses for your next fight. Also, you can go shopping for clothes, accessories, and a new haircut. With this wide assortment of clothes, you can dress like the samurai you always wanted to be. If you still have some money left, why not visit the casino to play some exciting rounds of poker? And when you finally have enough of all the gambling and questing, then buy some bait from the local fisherman, go to any body of water, and start a relaxed fishing session. Way of the Samurai has the word replay written all over it. For example, some of your actions from the last run will transition into your next run. There are certain types of buildings in Amihama you can unlock through missions, like the British Hospital or the Language School. These special buildings will stay open until you close them down again by taking another mission that targets the building, so you don't have to do everything all over again. Also, Amihama is a collector's dream because there is so much stuff to pick up. The game has over 80 different fighting styles to explore. Every enemy you encounter will use one of these styles, and you can learn each and every one of them. And if you don't want to participate in the story at all and just want some good old Japanese weirdness, well then take a mission from 4 very distinct individuals in Amihama that need your help. The thief got his stuff stolen from a squad of sumo wrestlers, and now you need to get it back for him. So prepare yourself for some nudity, you will get a lot of that. Or you can work for the local Yakuza and get tasked with taking out the competition who just wears masks and not much else. But don't get caught doing something illegal, cause if you do, you will be taken in by the police and then be sentenced to a torture minigame that resembles a Japanese gaming show, complete with nude men in the background who will rate your performance and one of the Kinugawa sisters in the role of your personal dominatrix. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. Tell me, do you want to have a casual date? Because you can do that too. Just walk up to someone you find attractive and seduce them with some smooth lines like, "Open your borders. All of them." If you talk a smooth enough game, you will be invited into the house of your partner where you have to sneak past guards in the most creepy and pervy way for some reason, and once you found the right bed, uncover the blanket with gleeful anticipation and voila! You will get rewarded with a blackout and some strange sounds that play in the background.
もっとそばに来て。
もう我慢できない。この。
Way of the Samurai doesn't take itself very serious. It's just like a visual novel game with a truckload of Japanese weirdness, but that's what ultimately makes this game fun. But hold your horses, there's not one game without a sin, and by God, for all the things Way of the Samurai does good, there's also a lot of meh stuff that comes with it. For example, as much as I love the idea of having so many fighting styles, I simply ended up spamming one single special move and that's it. That's honestly the only move I used to get through the game because the AI simply wasn't up to speed. They will do one attack, sometimes two, and then they will stop in their tracks, mentally wandering off to God knows where, sometimes literally, and then they will do the same thing again. It doesn't matter how many styles you have if you just have to press one button over and over again to win. The system behind it is too simple. Now, a simple combat system I can tolerate, it's not game breaking. What I cannot tolerate though is bad camera work, and sometimes I just wanted to reach into the screen and choke the life out of the cameraman. In open spaces, the camera will not give you any problems. It's nice, it's always focused on the action, it's really good. But whenever you fight in a slim corridor or around the corner, this stupid thing will block your vision because it will not register anything around it. See this? I just wanted to move it to the left so I can see what's to my right, but it snaps back every time. This is just infuriating and it makes fighting harder than it really is. And then there's the fact that the graphics are not standard. Never were, never will be. Now combine this with the NPCs that might or might not make an impression, and it's easy to see that most people will stop playing right before the good parts even start. If you look close enough, Way of the Samurai surprises with a lot of cool ideas, like a combat system that could be really rewarding and really complex, but eventually falls into the mash button X to win category. They have this unique way of telling a good story and they let you work for it, which I think is a superb idea. But sadly, a lot of people never figure out what to do with the premise or simply get bored too soon. There are some brilliant ideas in this, but the execution is kind of flawed. And I honestly think this is the case because the dev team was too ambitious and put too much stuff in this game, and I don't know, the deadline came and they just had to finish it. Now just to make this clear, this is not a bad game by all means. Think of it more as a diamond in the rough. And suppose you think graphics are secondary to a game like I do, and you just want your very own samurai simulator. Then you might be in for a pleasant surprise and a pretty good story that you worked for. Also, you can beat people up with a fish while being naked. So that's something you don't see every day. And now, if you'll excuse me, I want to test out this new blade the smith made for me. See ya!